Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's August the 14th, 2023. It's time to shake, rattle, and hum. So rise and shine, little darlings. It's another glorious Marine Corps morning. Get your coffee cup full of some good Java of your choice. Get your Bible and join us here in the next couple of minutes as we get ready for the morning work. So let me see if I can get you guys dialed up here. There we go. Pull this out there. Silence this. Get you guys over there. Sharon Shirley and Amy Hacker. Good morning to all of y'all. Roll Tide. Hoorah. Hey, Miss Mary. Desiree, good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hey, Beth Adams. And Buddy, it was good to see you Sunday, buddy. Glad you were in town. Hey, Julie and Brandy, good morning. Dez, look at Dez up and at him. Desiree White, Mason, good morning. Jim Pennington, the big dog's out. Diane and Nicole, good to see you. Nicole, Camellia. Hey, Camellia, I found out last night. Hey, Ken Jenkins, found out last night from Gary. He sent a picture to us. Hey, Victory, Miss Linda. He sent a picture to us of a ball python that your daughter has. Let me say that again. A snake. Lord have mercy. I told him if I went to bed in that house and woke up and that snake was in my bed, I'd shoot everything except myself in that house. I'd shoot the walls down and burn it. Good Lord have mercy. He said, well, its last name is Ball, and its first name is Ball. It's a ball python, and that's our last name. Greg said, isn't that convenient? I said, I don't care what his name is. I put a load of buckshot in him. I can't believe that. And then he said he had a lizard. All y'all need's a clown. Good Lord have mercy. Hey, Chuck Hassel. Hey, Daryl Shaw. Hey, Kim Barnett. Good Lord have mercy. Just don't bring the snake on TV here. Lord of mercy. Willie Kelly. Good morning, Camellia. Camellia, get the snake and Gary up. Tell him to go to work. Hey, Al, what's going on? Lord help. Hey, Mary Joyce, and to all that passed by Bill Davidson while we were talking about the snake. Lord have mercy. Y'all just short of having a children's hands-on museum. Lizards and snakes. Hey, Nikki, good morning. Good morning, Michelle. Look at you. Good to see you, Shell. Tell Robert I said hello. Hey, Kim Owens. Tess, good morning. Eric Jones. Eric, you at the Mustang this morning? You getting some coffee and gas and some guidons for breakfast and lunch? Beautiful butterflies. Lord of mercy. I'm out of the loop. All right, here we go. Let's get ready. Let's get our cups up. Toast to the morning word crowd. God bless y'all. God bless America. Let's get a little sip for the trip. All right. So we got our Bible now. We're going to open it up to Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10. We're just going to read one verse. We're going to summarize some verses around it and make a point. Are you ready? Matthew chapter 10. I'll give you just a second to turn there while we give a shout out to our school teachers this morning, to our military personnel, and to our police officers. Thank you all for the work that you do for your community and your country. God bless you. All right, Matthew 10:32. Therefore, whoever confesses me before men, him I will also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, him I will also deny before my Father who is in heaven. Now, what Jesus is saying here, this is in the context of him choosing 12 disciples in the beginning of the chapter, and him sending them out as sheep among wolves, meaning false teachers and preachers who are going to try to devour the disciples. He sends them directly to the people of Israel. That's another lesson for another day. He told them, don't go to the Gentiles, don't go to the Samaritans. And he told them to go preach and work miracles and cast out demons, and freely receive, freely give. So he says, and when I'm sending you out, you're going to meet with opposition. And he says, they're going to hate you for my name's sake. But he says, you go on and preach what I tell you in the dark. Preach it on the housetops, for there's nothing that is hidden that won't be revealed. Then he tells them in verses 29 that that even though sparrows are so cheap, not one of them falls to the ground. Watch it now. It says, apart from your Father's will, meaning that God has foreknowledge of what's going to happen to them, and he's watching over them and caring for them. We know that. So if he cares for the sparrows, he cares for them. And he says, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are more value of many sparrows. So he's connecting the fear of confessing Christ openly. Okay? He's telling them that they're going to become fearful of confessing Christ openly because of the opposition and the possible consequences that they would face. But he's telling them that if you don't confess me, okay, publicly, then I'm not going to confess you publicly. All right? So if you're going to let fear keep your confession in, then I won't confess you before men as well. He tells them in verse 34 very plainly, do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I didn't come to bring peace on earth. For I've come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake in the gospel, or he who loses his life for my sake, will find it. Then he goes down in the next 3 verses. He tells every man that you will receive a reward. He will receive a reward for receiving Christians and ministering to people at whatever level it is. The faithfulness of the believer will not go unnoticed and unrewarded by God. Now, let's go back up to the point. God does not provide an ongoing opportunity for Christians to remain anonymous. We must come out of the closet. See, you can't be salt and light unless you are identified as a Christian. He calls for a public confession of Christ. A public confession of Christ. Now, that doesn't mean that you run up into the face of the Roman centurion and go, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, and seeking martyrdom, because that's not, he goes on to tell him, he said, if you're preaching the gospel, he's telling this to the disciples. He said, if you're preaching the gospel and they resist you, meaning they don't want to hear what you have to say, he said, then you shake the dust off of your feet and move on. It doesn't say stick your heels in the ground and make them kill you or incarcerate you. He said, you move on if they don't want to hear it. So he's not talking about seeking conflict publicly. He's saying that we should be bold in our confession of Christ when people ask us, or when we are approaching them with the gospel. We need to let them know that we are a Christian. You know, you don't have to walk around with a t-shirt on that says I'm a Christian. But what it means is that we are not ashamed of Christ. That's what it means, to not be ashamed of Christ. And people need to know if we are truly born again and a Christian. All right. I saw a t-shirt one time that said, live your life in such a way that the preacher doesn't have to lie at your funeral. Okay. In other words, if me, and I'm just using me because I'm a preacher, if I have to get up and seek testimony from some people about, hey, what kind of guy was this guy? Well, you know, he was rough as a cob, but back in 1947, he used to go to church and he got baptized and he said he believed in Jesus. All right. And so it's 1997 and there's no change in his life. That's not exactly a public, a shameless confession of Christ. I mean, if you got to dig up some yahoo way back in his past and says, yeah, you know, he loved people. Oh, yeah, I understand that. My point is this. It ought to be evident in our lives that we are Christians. It should be evident, even to the lost world, that we are Christians. Even if they don't agree with it, they say, I don't believe in Jesus, but I'm gonna tell you something. Now, he said he was a Christian, and he walked it out. He lived it out. There's no place for a private confession. Okay, it's supposed to be public, in the sense that we are unashamed of it, and we identify. Oh, there's a word that's popular today, and we identify as Christians, but not just a public confession. Okay, not just a public confession, but a visible cross. What does that mean? What does it mean? Well, I don't have a cross that people can see. So what does that mean? All right, now listen very carefully, okay, because people get crazy all the time. They say, well, you know, my sister had multiple sclerosis and I've got cancer, and that's just our cross to bear. Wrong, double wrong. Your cross to bear is the persecution and the suffering that you and I endure for the namesake of Christ. To identify with Christ is to carry a cross, is to identify with Christ, and for the world to see that we are dead to ourselves and alive to Christ, that we are Christ followers. All right. And so what he's saying here is to confess Christ and then pick up our cross and follow him, is that there is a public confession, but to carry my cross is to live out that confession. That's what it means. To carry our cross is to live out our confession. When we confess Jesus publicly, there's going to be a kickback from culture. That's the cross. There's going to be a kickback from culture that says, we don't want you, we don't want your kind, we don't want to hear the word, don't say that name, take that book out of here, take that cross from around your neck, you can't say that here, that's offensive, that's hate speech. All of those things are the persecutions of the world, and that becomes your cross to bear as we identify with the sufferings of the Lord for his name's sake. We don't seek martyrdom. We don't go walking up and down the road carrying a cross so that people can know that we're Christians. We just simply go out and confess Jesus as Lord, and we follow him in his word and in his ways. And that sets us diametrically opposed to the rest of the world, which will bring a certain level of hardship into our lives based on whatever place. You know, in the United States, it's more so now than it's ever been, but it's much less than it is in places like China, where they will put you in prison and in some instances kill you. Kill you pretty quickly in North Korea for that. Iran will get you incarcerated for sure. But my point is that everyone has a certain level of suffering for identifying with Christ. But Jesus said, if you don't confess me, okay, publicly, if you're ashamed of me, and if you don't take up your cross and follow me, meaning follow me in my lifestyle and live according to the word, then you're not. Here's what Jesus said. I didn't say it. He said, you're not worthy of me. He said, and he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who loves other people more than me is not worthy of me. So Jesus is pretty narrow here. Remember the narrow way and the broad way? The broad way leads to destruction. Many that go therein. Narrow is the way that leads to life, and few that find it. What Jesus is saying here is, I got a narrow way, and it calls for a public confession and identification of Christ, and a lifestyle that follows after me. And it's going to set you in opposition to culture. So we could say it this way, okay? The name of the morning word is out in the public, okay? Out in public. It's publicized. It's out in the public. But we could say it this way, that our confession and our cross is going to put us counter with the culture. Our confession and the cross, that's our confession and our validation, meaning that the work of the cross is being worked out in our life as we follow follow Jesus, that our confession and our cross is going to put us at odds with the culture. But Jesus doesn't leave us a way out. He doesn't leave us a way out. We can't be salt and light in anonymity. He doesn't allow for private, anonymous disciples. It's an oxymoronic to say that we're following Jesus in the shadows and out of sight and out of mind when Jesus was at the forefront, out in the open, right? So the morning word for today is we need to go public, and we don't need to be ashamed of Christ. And you say, well, Pastor Randy, if I go public with my faith, I may lose my job. I don't say that flippantly. I'm just saying that, if they come to you and they say, you can't pray, or you can't have a devotion before work here, or you got to put your Bible up, or whatever, you got to take a stand somewhere. I was thinking about this, and I'm going to hustle. I was thinking about this as I was this morning, and I was thinking about preaching on the sidewalks out there at the University of Alabama. Now, they're not going to let you do that. They're not going to let you do that. It's all about, this is private property, and you got to have, you got to be invited by the university to come on campus, okay? To which I say, well, when you opened the gates to that stadium out there, you invited 102,000 people to show up. I just took you at the invitation, right? I just took the invitation. You say, come party. I just go on where the party is. You go out there and hold up a sign, and they're going to come they're going to come tell you got to leave. So you leave, then you go back again. You just go to another place. Eventually they're going to say, the reason they're doing that is they don't want Jesus to be mentioned on campus in a public way, in a public forum, because it offends people in mass. I've been out there before, and I heard a guy, well, I didn't actually hear him, but there was a friend of mine that was a Christian standing next to a guy on the other side of the street getting ready to go to a football game. They were walking towards the stadium. I was standing on the opposite corner at the red light over there at Publix on University Boulevard, and I had a sign, just standing there with a sign that says, repent and believe in Jesus. Well, this guy on the other side of the street goes, who does that guy think he is? Standing over there with that sign. This ain't the place and this ain't the time. Well, my buddy heard it. I didn't know all this. He tells me about it later. He goes, that guy is telling everybody what everybody out here needs to know, hear and know. And that is, without Christ, you can't be saved. And that guy said, again, well, this is not the place and this is not the time. And my buddy said, this is exactly the place and this is exactly the time, because you never know when Jesus is coming back. So my point is that we have to go public. But know this, your confession and your cross will put you at odds with culture. But still, Jesus said, you got to